afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to AVX Live. I'm Joe Gilderson, President of Corporate Audio Visual Services, and I am joined once again by my co-host, Mr. Ryan Finch.
Hello, hello. I'm very green today. I figured this is behind the scenes. You might as well see behind the scenes.
Wow. You have made an excellent decision, Ryan. We're talking behind the scenes today. We're
That's
talking
right.
fun stuff. We're talking backgrounds.
Backgrounds.
I see what you did there. That's pretty good.
I know. It's very creative.
Now, as many of you know, because I know we have a dedicated and loyal fan base, we have actually not been on the last 2 weeks. We've been very tied up and very busy little bees, some would say. And, but today we're back. We're back. It's a great day. It's beautiful and sunny outside here in New York. They're actually grilling right now as we speak. There's a momentary reprieve. Everybody's having fun. But we did not want to not bring some helpful advice to the table. And today, we want to talk a little bit about backdrops and some of the different scenic options, because many times that gets forgotten about, which blows my mind because it's literally the only thing that the entire audience is looking at the entire night. Ryan, anything you want to contribute to that thought?
Put thought into it, earlier than that night. That's an easy one.
Try a little.
Right? Like this is what everyone in the room is going to stare at for at least half the night, right? Other than their dinner plate. Or maybe it's a conference.
Really
it could be their notebook.
My dinner plate. I don't stare at my dinner plate that often.
No, but you do glance down once in a while. I'm just saying. Point was made.
Yeah, because when there's those like weird looking carrots, like I'm like, I don't know. Anyways, let's stay on track here. So we're going to look at some different options very quickly, right? We're going to talk about some of the basics, but then we're also going to cover some of the more involved because there's really a lot of different ways to do it. You just got to think about it a little bit. That's all, and consult with your production team, consult with your design team, and they'll all have great ideas for you to try out. So, Ryan, you ready to go down a little visual escapade? Okay.
You're not going to have me do my lines?
All right, let's do your lines first then.
Okay. You can find us on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube live. You can do that every Wednesday, most Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And while you're there, you can drop us a comment, be part of a show, ask us questions, and we will answer them live. If you happen to have any questions about backdrops, now would be the time. And of course, you can also like, comment, share, subscribe, all the above. Much appreciated. And if you miss a previous show, because you're watching this one, so how else would you know? But if you missed a previous show, or you can't watch the rest of this show, you can go back to our YouTube channel to see the full videos in their entirety. And you'll also see some chopped up pieces, some highlights, video bites on Facebook and on LinkedIn and on Instagram. Nailed it. There you go. Moving on.
That was pretty good. All in all, pretty good. All right, let's get at this thing. Let's go to the visuals. We're at the stage. All right. So what do we got here? Well, we have a TV, but we also have some greenery, a very popular, backdrop design, which I always think looks pretty cool. Now, in this case, it's during the day of the event, because at night you can light that baby up and it'll look pretty cool. Mr. Finch, anything to add about just using some sort of visuals like this? Pretty straightforward.
Right? Ivy, so hot right now. Ivy is hot, whether it's a champagne wall or the backdrop at a wedding, or in this case, a nice outdoor feeling. You bring in a little bit of the outdoors to the inside. It's kind of nice. But very simple way to go. It's got to be a big screen. Can't be a tiny little one unless you also have, some bigger screens off to the sides, in which case then it just ends up showing a logo or something different. And if you do have screens on the outsides, then give a thought as to, do you want it to show the same exact stuff as the bigger ones on the outside? Or do you want it to show something different that, makes an impact from a tech side, is to be able to have separate control over individual screens? So in this case, it's just one screen for the whole thing, but they used it as a backdrop. There's branding and everything that they show on that screen, but it's also the primary means of content delivery as well.
Fantastic. All right, so that's an option. Okay, certainly an option to have some visuals, TV or screen, but adding in that other layer behind it really adds a lot to it. Let's see what we got next here. Or let's see what we got next here. Hey, there
There
we
we
go.
go.
All right, we got a basic, just a basic step and repeat. Those are pretty common,
Step and
huh?
repeat.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
that's it. I think we see a few of those
You
around.
mean
Okay.
you mean you could put that behind a stage?
You know, Ryan, you can. You can put
That
it
makes
behind the
sense.
stage. You need to have something that has your name up there. And I'm gonna skip ahead to two other uses of that step and repeat. Let's see what we got. That is
Okay.
basically just a banner as well,
It is indeed a banner. I remember that night.
just a bigger
It
banner.
is. It is. And you put a little bit of light on it. You see some uplights there, but when we turn on the stage lighting, everything really pops. In some cases, there might be, a big logo that we wanted to highlight, and we can put a what's called a special on it, where we can kind of light it specifically. It almost looks like it's glowing. So if your logo you wanted to really separate from everything else, or you wanted to add lighting to add another dimension to what is really just a printed backdrop, then that's also something we can do.
Very good. Very good. But again, that's just a
I
regular
think
type of material.
that the nice thing, if we could just go back for 1 second,
Yeah.
is to Joe's point. Yeah, it is a print, but it is simple. And what simple means in this case is it doesn't take long to set up, and it doesn't take a lot of people. And so, from a cost perspective, there's not a whole lot to it other than the print, right? So obviously, this is a low cost way to add some branding to your stage.
Now, some of the quick disadvantages, right? You have to get the wrinkles out of it. Let's start
Yeah,
there. It
yeah,
also needs to, like something this size, probably needs to hang from something. It's not going to be on
that's
the
true.
same little built material that we saw in this one. That won't do some, it just can't handle that kind of weight. But you do
Yeah.
have to plan on
Also,
getting the wrinkles out and taking the time to do that.
right, if there happens to be some sort of industrial air conditioner placed somewhere overhead and it starts to do one of these, it's not as good either. So it is kind of a time and a place type of thing, or you have to kind of just roll with the punches on it. But it is a low cost option to add some branding.
Now, one thing with this particular kind, where this is done just for an event, you probably can't use it again. So just things to keep in mind. But again, there's pluses and minuses to each one of these. Let's keep moving forward. This is actually a very, very similar material and kind of built structure from the ground up, step and repeat. The funny thing is, it's framed just for this picture because this was, again, for investors. So it's framed just so that they saw that in the live stream. Because in reality, it's only about maybe a foot higher, if that, in person. So things can be very different when they're on the screen than when they are sometimes in person. But this happened to be branded so that they could reuse that same material. But
That that is a good point. Is reusing things, and this did come up once before for us, is that they potentially wanted to be able to reuse something, but they had made it they've branded it to the location that they were having the event, and then the event was not in that location the next year. And so, the print is generally one of the bigger costs to something like that. So if you can get more use out of it, then all the better.
absolutely. All right, let's look at some other potential, what we'll call inexpensive options. All right, so in this particular
Mm,
case, we just have some soft goods, right? Some gray drapery, some lighting. They do have some branding on it, which is kind of
that's
a
true.
pretty cool little lit sign. That
You know
sounds
what?
so
You
lit.
know, you know what this thing has? You know what this one has? It's actually a very technical term. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of it. It's got the vibes.
Oh, is vibes the
So
technical term?
the vibes is the technical term. So this is a loungy feel, right? So therefore, the vibes.
No wonder I'm not familiar with such a term.
I'm not surprised you're not familiar with it, but continue.
All right, here's some of that same soft goods gray drape material, but now lit a little bit differently.
Mm,
And that's the advantage of some of the soft goods. They're reusable. They're fairly easy and quick to get set up and in place. And there's different colors, so there's flexibility of that. but they also light well. Just different
Certainly
ways
do
to do
light
some
well.
things.
And you got your big center screen. That is a screen. It's not a print. And because it is the center and also the only means of content delivery, it is enormous, which makes a lot of sense. You got the ceiling height to work with. Why not? It becomes the focal point of the whole room. Makes sense.
Oh, the focal point. I like that. It's a very technical term. All
It's
right,
not
so
that
let's.
technical. Not as
It's
technical
not
as
as
the
technical.
vibes. Continue.
Oh, the vibes is more. Okay, got it. I'm still learning. I'm still learning. So let's take a look at some of the other potential options. What's more traditional in certain branded events is having like a hard set, right? Something that is custom built to fit the space, to fit the event. So let's see if we got any of those guys we can take a look at. All right, Ryan, is that a hard set? Custom
That is a
set?
hard set. It is a hard set. It is custom designed. Yeah, I mean, a very clean aesthetic, clean backdrop takes light very well. It fits the vibe of the space. Again, to use a technical term once more,
Wow.
it does fit the aesthetic of the rest of the room, and I think that's why they chose to go with white.
Are there any I think honestly, it looks incredible, and the way the logo's
It
offset
does.
looks fantastic. The colors, everything looks great. Any
Mhm.
disadvantages or challenges when considering building like a hard set like this?
Well, the limitations of the ceiling height, right? Like it's got to fit. It's got to physically fit, like you said. And in this case, the ceiling height isn't very tall. And so what you want to do is fill up the space and make it tall enough so that a person standing on stage, it looks much taller than the person. But when the ceiling height is kind of low, then that does create some challenges. So always consider the physical dimensions of the space before you pull the trigger on anything that is custom and therefore not easy to change.
Hmm. Yeah, I know that, we typically have to factor in a certain amount of staffing to build these things, and everything's really
That
got to
too.
be precise.
Mm.
you know, like there's not a lot of room for error. This is the old
Also,
carpenters, measure it 9 times, cut it once kind of thing.
yeah, white gets dirty easy. So that's the other thing is, it's like when we have white backdrops, we'll have guys go wash their hands, prior to putting it up because, those road cases, you'll have a little residue on your hands and, a few handprints on that wall ruin the whole thing. So white is unforgiving. Another thing to
Ryan, they
consider.
should they should really be washing their hands anyways. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I agree, but I'm talking about timing, very specific
Okay.
timing in this case.
Well, let's keep this moving. Let's see. Are there any other options? Oh, here's another custom build scenic set,
There you go.
hard set. Again, looks great. I mean, it
It does.
really looks good. Fits the room perfectly, exactly the kind of look and vibe they're going for.
Right.
Really cool.
This also has a good example of dimension where they made the choice to kind of bow out the sides, right? Like flare them inward, I should say. And that was a big reason for that was because of the nature of filming. So there was a lot of filming going on at this particular event. So they wanted a clean backdrop that extended behind the person seated, even when filmed at an angle, right? So you can see kind of where the cameraman is positioned on the right side of the image. That wall is now kind of wrapped around the back of them to give them a nice kind of background image. If it wasn't there, it would trail off. You'd see the edge and the drape and maybe even the window behind the subject on the camera from the angles, and not as ideal. We want the branding. We want that to live the whole time on screen.
Excellent point. So, hey, Ryan, what do you think they do with that backdrop that says your next move after this particular event?
In many cases, they just strike it entirely, and it's scrapped. A lot of times because it is literally made for this space. It's a one-time event in this one space. They can't necessarily reuse it. In some cases, I'm sure they could. This happens to be a recurring series, so it's possible they were able to reuse it. I don't believe so. I think it was really made for the sole purpose of this one night only, as they say.
Hmm, got it.
So certainly something that is possible and just something worth considering. When you're going to produce this, is there even an option to use it again if you wanted to?
Well, I think that's a good point. Why don't we look at some things that are similar to this custom scenic, but maybe that could be reused again.
Aha, there you go.
Yeah.
Could be
This
reused again.
looks the same as the others.
Yes, it wasn't. I can tell you that, but yes, could be reused again, and the reason is because it is modular, meaning that the hardware, the physical structure of it, wasn't necessarily just built for one time event. It is a rental item, which also helps reduce the cost. So figure that again, it's got to fit the space, so they would have to use the same size again, so that part doesn't change. But what's nice is the physical material is very much reusable. In some cases, groups will actually purchase the physical material, the building blocks, if you will, and then they're just paying for the prints each time, which over the course of several events, does actually really create some savings to be had. So.
Mhm.
Again, this one also has a little bit of dimensionality. It's tough to tell when you're straight on, but the walls with the screens are actually a little bit, pushed forward, and the that main backdrop graphic is actually recessed, and so again, just a little something to add some dimension, to add some interest, a little more room for creativity.
Very cool. Very cool. All right, let's keep going. Let's take another look. This is another modular backdrop.
There we are. That's right. So in this case, an interesting thing to consider is how tall the graphics are. Right. One thing that this client in particular wanted to consider was, when the guests are seated, are they blocking the logo of what were sponsors of the event? And in this case, the answer was no, intentionally so. And so we did some mock-ups to get the stage height to match up, and we got the dimensions of the chairs, and we did a full professional mock-up just to make sure that the graphics were aligned with what was going to be happening on stage. And that's also another important thing to consider, because when you print it, and that's it. It's only one time. You don't get to reprint it. When it shows up on site, it's got to be right. And so just another thing to consider is exactly that, is, how does it work in context? And I would say in general, you don't have to go crazy on this. The idea is it is supposed to be background. It's not supposed to be the main focal point. In this case, it's not a screen where the content's being delivered. It is indeed just a background, a backdrop. And so, somebody walking in front of it or sitting in front of it is not the end of the world. It's just a matter of, what your specific goals are in this. In this case, they wanted to give their sponsors the most amount of screen time, if you will, or most amount of visibility. And so, that's why they wanted to put some extra attention into height of the graphics.
Well, I got to say, it looks super clean. And the height and all those designs are really important to making things work well. So
Absolutely.
let's keep taking a look at some other modular ideas. There's a lot of ways to add patterns and different textures, so to speak. And you'll notice there's a lot of lighting. Any of these materials, the lighting gives everything dimension, and it just makes it more interesting, right? But now you have people, we can change it up. You can change it by sessions. You can change it by, if there was a different sponsor, you could light it up in their colors. Like, there's just a lot of flexibility. And all of these parts are basically reusable. They can be reapplied somewhere else. So it helps to lower the cost a little bit. It's not as custom as something that's built just for your event, but it does allow you a lot of flexibility. So even if we look at this one and then we look at another one, those are all modular pieces. So we could change it up from event to event if we really wanted to, because you do have to adjust to the scale of the room and the environment that you're in. But you can see in this case, there's a couple of towers there too. Let's see, a little mouse action there. Look at that mouse. There's a couple of towers there. And those are also modular pieces that can be brought in. And so they just add a different element. But lighting is really very important to a lot of these things. Let's look at some other soft goods, right? These are all part of soft goods, but yet they're reusable, they're modular, they're very green, Ryan. We're very green around here.
Very green.
Just like,
This is purple. I'm green.
Purple. We're green or purple. I'm not sure. But in this case, this is another rentable kind of pattern and design. You have some flexibility with, but it is kind of designed to do a certain thing. But when you add the lighting to the texture, it gives it a really cool look. And then you can add in your content delivery, which in this case would be the TVs. But that's just for the stage. That's not really for the room. So every time you put a camera on someone, you're really getting a very clean look in the backdrop. Anything you want to add to that, Mr. Finch, before we move on to the next step of our
No, I mean, I think you
exciting
covered
tour?
it. I think this is a creative way to add branding, right? Because that's clearly a W, and I would venture to guess that the W was intentional, and that it
It
came
was.
from from what you see on the screen. So, but it's just interesting that this isn't a logo. It's not necessarily a specific version of a W necessarily, but they used it as a visual motif. A motif. There's a technical term for you. Very close
Wow.
to the
It's
vibe.
like vibes. Wow.
It's
So
close. It is close.
one of our former AVX live participants designed it. Just gonna say. So let's keep moving. We got a couple other things. If I could make that work. There we go. So this is
Nice.
something totally different that I never even saw before a few weeks ago. And you can see, because this is part of the reason we talk about these backdrops, right? So when you look to the right side of the screen, you see the woman at the podium, who I'm pretty sure might have been on Univision, but the backdrop behind her is actually cardboard, like interlocking cardboard, which I know was inexpensive. And then it got built it's like, what's that game? Jenga. That's what it looked like Jenga. You got like built it on top of each other, and then it could all fall down at the end. It was kind of interesting. It really
I was
was
going to
kind of
say
interesting.
whoever donates the most money at this fundraiser gets to run and dive through the Jenga blocks.
And it
Smart,
would be so
smart.
fun. So
It
fun.
would be fun. That's actually
But
there's an idea right there. I'm just saying. Give people the power of destruction. Just fun, controlled destruction, but fun as a reward for being.
we're gonna stay creative today. Let's not do destruction today.
Well, I thought it was creative. Sometimes, never mind. Go ahead.
Okay. So what was interesting about this was really how, again, it added dimension and took lighting, and it did give it an interesting backdrop. And when you look at it on the screen, you're like, oh, that looks pretty cool.
It's nice
right?
texture.
It added something that we didn't even know that was going to happen until we showed up that day. So, but it was pretty cool. But how about the things that we know are a little more impressive, that we probably hear about a lot more, like LED video
LED.
walls. The old LED. So in this application, that is a video wall that's being used like most people would use a step and repeat. Except we could actually change out the graphics in a split second, and it would be like another step and repeat. And again, these are reusable again. So the technology is allowing us to create different images at different times that would fit whoever's presenting on stage. Now this is a small version, right? It's not a big wall. It's a small version. But what if it was a bigger version?
It's a big version.
We didn't do that one, but I got to say it looked great.
It did look good. We were attendees and we were wowed. So if that helps drive a point home, then there you have it. As AV professionals, we were like, wow, they did a nice job with this. Now, I think it goes with saying is that, wow, they spent a lot of money on this as well, because that is quite a massive LED wall. But Joe, I think, I don't know if you were going to get to this next, but it also does speak to the point of it's only as good as what?
If I had to guess, I would say the content that you're putting on the wall.
Correct.
Is that for vibes? You like those vibes?
I was going to say vibes next, so you took the words out of my mouth. But yeah, it's only as good as the
vibes.
Oh God. Did you just learn this? Now I'm nervous.
I don't know. Somebody showed me that.
Well, in any case, the graphic design, the video production, in this case, there's motion. Motion tends to work well, specifically as a backdrop, right? Like when we're using it for content, you probably don't want to distract from the content. But when it's just a background, and I want to say just as in it's only a background, it's just a background. You can add a little bit of motion and texture and dynamics to it that add a lot of impact. Right, it makes quite an impression and just makes it look really cool and visually interesting. And that's something that this example they did pretty well. But it's important to think about because you're going to make a giant screen for you to show something on it. And so sometimes, that becomes an afterthought. It's like, no, it shouldn't be the afterthought. It should be the primary thought. You have this thing you want to see, and we can help you bring that to life. Not, give me something and then I'll think about maybe what I want to see on it. I think that's thinking a little bit in reverse.
Well, you're also going to have a lot of custom graphics going on at that point. So
Right.
that's really important because you have to think about that ahead of time and you have to plan for who's going to design it. So you need to know exact dimensions, exact resolution, and you have to build all of the content that's going on that to that shape. So that's important. It requires planning. Right. There has been another use of this technology that has been all over the news in the last 3 days. Let's see
Yeah.
if we can pull up the Death Star. I
Wow.
mean, so this is, if you've heard of the Sphere in Las Vegas, it's brand new. The owners of Madison Square Garden, MSG, is they're the owners of this $2.3 billion extravaganza,
That's
and
that's Billy with a B.
it's pretty amazing. I mean, it is
Mm-hmm.
really amazing. You can go online, you can Google some pictures. There's the NBA All Star. It looks like a giant basketball. This is the Death Star. I mean, it can be literally anything. Ryan, I'm going to take this off screen. You think maybe you got a video?
I think I do. I'm going to keep the
Let's see
sound
what you
off,
got.
otherwise we're going to get shut off. But here's from the inside because now I think everybody's probably seen these U2 concerts, the U2 concerts that are kicking this off. The funny thing about this is, Joe, the U2 concerts actually come pre-installed into the venue, and you actually can't remove them, regardless of whether you wanted U2. They're actually pre-installed in the venue, unfortunately. So that was an Apple joke that you wouldn't get, but somebody will
Nope.
will see this and will get it. But here you
That
actually
was very
see
funny, though,
a
but that's okay.
if you knew what I was talking about, you would go, you'd get that. You'd breathe hard through your nose. You go, that's what you do.
Yeah, it
But in
does
this
look like that.
case, this is incredible. This is literally the backdrop of this concert. It is a panoramic. It's not 360. It's really like 180 degrees. But look, I mean, look at it. Like it is awe inspiring. And this is the backdrop of a show. And to say that a lot of content creation goes into this would be an understatement. I saw something that said that they have like 300 designers or 300 creatives in general working on content that goes onto this sphere. And you have to figure this is the only one that exists like it in the entire world, and that has ever existed like it. And so content on you're going to have to put a lot of attention into that. You're going to have to work on it to make sure it works. So yeah, talking about a team of create 300 people working on creative for something like that.
That's pretty insane.
Yeah.
It's pretty insane,
Hmm.
but very cool. And I guess I would call that like the highest level of technology that's
So
happening
if
in
you
the
want
entire
the
world.
sphere at your next benefit gala, you
Yeah,
just call us and we'll bit now, probably not.
we're not
We don't
delivering
have
that.
Billy with a B, you know?
But still pretty cool, right? But these
It
are
is
all
cool.
just different options, right? They're talking about the reason they built that, of course, was to get the audience engaged into this different, virtual experience, so to speak. And certainly a lot of our market is going that way. Wasn't it Meta that just reintroduced their a $400 version of, an AR device as opposed to like the $1,000 version? So there's a lot going on right now, but
Something
it's
like
all to
that.
create an
Yeah.
experience.
Right.
And I think that the reminder here is that our clients need to think ahead of time about what that focal point and what that experience is when they're seeing it in person and when they're watching it online, because it's all framed differently. Right now, Ryan's just very green, and that's all you're seeing. What if you were in person with Ryan? You would see it totally differently. But that would still be the focal point. Wow. Look what's going on. We're getting off target here. Yeah.
Behind
Whoa.
the scenes.
This is so behind the scenes.
These are the scenes.
So behind the scenes.
This is behind.
Mr. Finch, we are at 32 minutes. I think it's time to wrap the show up.
I would agree with you.
We've offered our advice. There's nothing more we can do here today.
That's it. We're done.
So
back to work.
Tell them how they can find us so they can ask us about options for backdrops next time.
You can find us on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on YouTube Live. You can do that every Wednesday at 1 p.m. You can drop us a comment. You can be part of the show. You can ask your questions. We will answer them live. You can also like, comment, share, subscribe, all the above. You can also find the rest of our YouTube or rest of our AVX episodes on our YouTube channel in their entirety, and bite-sized pieces, highlights on our Facebook and our Instagram and our LinkedIn channels. So yeah, go find us on the socials and we will be there.
That was so impressive. All right, everyone, we're done because Ryan's got nothing else to talk about besides his vibes.
That's it. Tapped out.
That's it. That's all we got. He's tapped out and from the green room. So we will see you next time on AVX Live. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I'm Joe Gilderson signing off. Bye-bye. Ciao, ciao.
Bye.